Hello beautiful people, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I'm bringing you my guest, Stefan Filippo. He is a naturopathy student who has gone through a health roller coaster. He is definitely the prime example to show you that you can turn your life around. He is also an amazing role model to show you that we can take control of our own health. At the end of the day, it is all our choice, isn't it? So what will you choose today? Will you choose to continue watching and learn about how you can look after your overall well-being? Or will you choose to skip because you feel like you are pretty healthy? I don't know. Whatever it is, I would encourage you to continue watching anyways, because what Stefan is about to share with you is more than just about health. It's time for you to live your optimal life, my darlings. So enjoy the interview.
Before you share what you do, I would love to know, how are you feeling today?
I'm pretty good today. I had a pretty relaxed day, which is something I don't always afford myself. So I'm glad I gave myself that, and I'm feeling pretty nice and chilled.
What did you do?
Not all that much really. I just sat in the sauna a little bit, went for a walk. I read a little bit and just took it easy really. I don't even know what to do on my days off half the time, because I'm just not used to giving myself like full days off just by myself. Usually I spend them with my partner, and today was just a day for me.
Good job. I'm so proud of you for doing that.
Thank you.
Well, please share with people what you do now and how do you help people?
So at the moment, I am a health coach, a health writer, and I'm also studying my bachelor's degree in naturopathy, so Bachelor of Health Science Naturopathy. So that just pretty much is what I'm doing at the moment. I also, not this semester, but I also teach economics at a university, so that's like a sort of little side note there, I suppose.
Those two are really different things, but cool.
They are related somewhat. I mean, everything, you can find relations everywhere, but there is a little bit of crossover I find in terms of like some of the principles we can look at in microeconomics and the sort of health space, in like how people make their decisions and what causes people to do certain things. And a lot of it's based on our perception of like what the benefit is and what we perceive the cost is. So I suppose we can boil a lot of that down to our health strategies as well.
I love the way that you put it. Everything is connected. It doesn't matter what subject. In the past decade, because I just want people to go on your website and read about your story, because you have put such details on it and I love it.
Yeah.
So in the past decade, if you can just say 5 things that you have learned, which you wish you know earlier, what would it be?
I would probably say the first one would come down to self-awareness. So I just think it's a really important thing to start cultivating at any age, really, because our body is always communicating to us. It's always telling us things, and we might think, oh, why did I get this shoulder pain? It just sort of came out of the blue. But the truth is, unless you've had like a traumatic incident, like a car crash or something, if you did nothing and you just started getting shoulder pain, that was building over time. Your body was probably giving you subtle hints that you just didn't listen to. So I think if we can cultivate that self-awareness, we can better release this tension, better improve our health, better live on purpose. But better, just like our body has this innate wisdom. I think we need to tap into it rather than living up here all the time. It's like live all over the place. Live in the whole body, not just in the head. So I suppose that would be the first one. That's very, very important for like any sort of healing modality as well. Like, we can look at the blood tests, we can look at imaging as well, but the quickest form of feedback we get every day is how we feel. So if we can cultivate that and feel into our bodies more. I suppose the second one I would say is responsibility. So this is something I need to tell my younger self as well, because I was very much stuck in the victim mentality in the early days of when I was quite unwell. This is everyone else's fault, or it's not my fault. And by throwing the blame out there, I was also throwing my power out there. And I'm not to say that I contributed to everything that came my way, but I was responsible for it. And until I sort of made that decision, or got that awareness rather, that I am ultimately responsible, like things won't really change all that much. So I would say that, and that's true of your health, where you are financially, your friendship circle. Like there is so much we can do, and like we can't obviously have control over everything, but there is so much we do have control over. So I think focus on that, do what we can with that, and let the rest take care of itself. Let the rest do what it's going to do, essentially.
That's two things.
Yeah. So the next one I would say is that prioritizing long-term health is probably going to yield the greatest dividends. So we can do things, we can do the 10-day cleanse and the 5-day this and the, get shredded in 30 days. But I think the best results come from thinking like, how is this going to improve? Like, is this going to be a strategy I can incorporate for the next 5-10 years? And is it going to work towards like getting a better me in every single way? So some of those things are just like committing to a daily practice that's going to compound over time. So that may be, something as simple as spend 20 minutes in nature. You might think, well, it's not going to do much. It won't do much today, but do it 5 times a week over, many weeks of the year. It will have a huge compounding effect, and the effects aren't always like noticeable straight away, but they do build up over time. And that's also true with like things we can buy as well. So I bought an infrared sauna for my home because when I was quite ill, I was in a lot of pain all the time, and I was really cold all the time as well, and just had a lot of issues. And I thought, you know what, I'm paying to use this sauna. Why don't I just buy one? I mean, obviously it's not like feasible for everybody, but at that point it was for me. And I can tell you, it has saved me an incredible amount of money, and it's paid itself off, I would say, like at least 50 times in the 5 years, like just from money saved and the benefits I get from it. And I just really like having a sauna, especially in this cold Melbourne winter.
Wow,
So
do you do it every day?
In the wintertime, I usually do. Yeah, I do my breathing practice in there as well. So, and it's a lying down sauna as well. And it just, like I said before, I'm like not always the best at keeping chilled out. So that's one of the things I do, just like flip the switch a bit and just get into the parasympathetic chill out mode really quickly.
Nice. Wait, was it 4 things that you share or only 3?
That was 3. Fourth one rather, I would say is there's this story, like the good news, bad news story. So this old, I think it's old Chinese sort of parable. Have you heard this one?
I was speaking to she used to be a yoga teacher, but she now owns Croak and Toma. Have you heard of the studio where you sip and paint? And she said the same thing, but continue, please.
Pretty much a story about this. I think it's a Chinese farmer who decides he wants to be wealthy, so he decides to buy horses. And then the whole town comes and says, "Oh, that's great news. Like congratulations, it's gonna be really good for you." And he's like, "Oh, good news, bad news, who knows?" And then the story sort of keeps going on, and the horses, they escape, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's bad news." And he's like, "Oh, who knows?" The horses come back with wild stallions, and they breed, and they have like a really like a beautiful supply of horses there, so they make a lot of money. And then the farmer's son gets his leg broken by one of the horses, and then it's always good news, bad news, who knows? And then the army comes, and the son can't go to war. So it's like we just don't know where things are going to lead. So like what I'm trying to put out through that story is that like we should do our best to not attach judgment to the stories, because I found this personally, some of the things that I thought were the worst things to happen at the time turned out to be the best, and that was true of getting unwell. Like I wouldn't be here right now. Like there's no doubt about it. I wouldn't be here right now on the call with you. I wouldn't have met my partner. I wouldn't have met like the amazing group of friends I have. I wouldn't be studying what I'm studying. So if I had attached that this is the worst thing and I let it stay like that, we may not be here right now. And that's probably true of many things in our life. So that's another thing I think is quite important. Just sit back and try and be like an observer of everything, really. That's like part of where the self-awareness comes in as well.
Yeah, I agree. Because sorry, I just want to say I do feel like how you look at one thing is how you look at everything. And if you look at life like it's shit all the time, then I'm sorry, you're just going to receive shit. But
yeah, you're going to find it as well. You know what I mean? Into a toilet, you're going to find the shit.
The fifth one?
Fifth one, there's something I need to tell myself, like a good social circle does really wonders for your quality of life and health. So I was sort of caught up in that I need to do the sauna, I need to do this, I need to do all these physical things. And throughout like sort of my experience of being ill a number of years ago, I was quite isolated from my friends because I just didn't have a lot of energy to go see people. So it was a big effort for me. And I think when I started to get a bit better, I was always a bit hesitant to go out. So I'm like, oh, I've got, like really low energy. I don't want to spend it or waste it, so to speak. But I've just found that like having a really good circle of friends and family and, people you surround yourself with, it just really lifts you up, not just in your mood, but like in your health. your quality of life, like where you're going. And I think that's something I would have liked to have heard a few years ago. I don't know if I'd listen. I was a bit of a stubborn young man, but I can always try and tell him that,
We're all stubborn in our own ways.
I suppose we are.
How old are you?
29.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm very happy that you're still very young and you have turned your life around very early, and I am so happy for you. And what you have said, honestly, thank you so, so much. The self-awareness thing, it goes with literally everything in life. The responsibility thing, yes. Like, I'm just like, because some people, they always just blame other people. And I'm just like, dude, you have a choice. Like, no one has pointed the gun at you to be like, you need to do X, Y, Z. So yeah, everything that you have shared is just amazing. But
thank you.
I'm a bit taken aback though, because I thought you were gonna say something like health related only.
Well, they all are. They all are. I mean, they're all mindset related, which I think as that sort of naturopathic sort of, study I'm doing, everything is interrelated. Like we look at that in the body, like, something happening up here is going to affect something happening down there and vice versa. And what's happening in your thoughts, like in your sort of, your field, like the people you're surrounding yourself with, they all have biological impact. So they are all health related, I would say.
So have you only gotten this mindset since you started studying?
No, it's been like a gradual thing, I would say. Like I ended up getting like glandular fever when I was like 19 or so, and that was the thing that kicked me into being unwell and starting this journey very, very slowly. But so it's been a very gradual process for the past 10 years or so. I wouldn't say I just sort of flick the switch and they all sort of, this is how life is. It's been a gradual process, and you sending through these questions, it's like it gives me a chance to look inside and think, what would I tell myself if I could look back on the past 10 years and say like what I've actually learned. So thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing. So for those who really want to know the background story of Stefan, please go on his website and have a read. Now, can you please share with people, how are you looking after your overall well-being? And has it changed?
Yeah. So, look, to be honest, it has changed only a very small amount, because I think what I was doing was already looking after myself in like as many ways as I knew how at the time. The only thing that really changed was that I did incorporate a few extra herbs. So I incorporated licorice into my regime. I incorporated mulane or Vivascum thapsus. That's like a lung herb. And the reason for the licorice was that for the past coronavirus, so the SARS-CoV-1 in I think 2003 or so, there were some studies on licorice to show that it actually inhibits the viral replication. And it's also just in Chinese medicine, it's one of those revered herbs. Like it's I think if I got this correct, it's actually the most used herb in all their Chinese formulations. So it's like got quite a high place there. So and the third reason was I had it in the pantry. So why not? It's just another lung tonic designed to improve like the sort of the mucous membrane health of the lungs. So just to have that nice physical barrier preventing anything. But truthfully, the more I've learned about this and the more I've seen, it appears that most of the people affected, not everyone, of course, but most of the people are those with comorbidities. So people with diabetes, heart disease, being obese, like the disease of like the Western, era, essentially, like the modern Western era. So I'm just doing things that I would do anyway. Like I'm already looking after metabolic health. That seems to be the biggest thing that's causing a lot of people to be unwell from this. So obviously, I'm not saying that healthy people don't get sick, but if I had a choice of being metabolically healthy or metabolically unhealthy, I'd choose metabolically healthy really right now. So that's just simple things like, going for a walk a few times a day, especially after you've eaten, to smooth out the blood sugar, having the sauna, which, not everyone has access to, but even a hot bath can do wonders for that, just upregulating heat shock protein expression, which has a positive effect on a lot of aspects, including the immune system. So just doing what I think is healthy anyway. And then I had those, the licorice and the mulane, but that was really about it for me.
I love it. What are your thoughts about drinking warm water?
I like it. I think if we look back to like traditional Chinese medicine, and a lot of traditional cultures as well, they would always talk about temperature of things. So one, we got like the physical temperature, we can have boiling water, which is, almost 100 degrees, and regular water, which is room temperature, or we can have like ginger, which, if you take it out of the fridge, it's still gonna be very hot in your mouth. So we've got the temperature there. And I think in traditional Chinese medicine, they would say that cold water damages the spleen meridian, which is to do with digestion and partly to do with immunity as well. So I'm always a bit of a cold constitution as well. So I like to have like some warm water in winter time. It's like when I wake up, like I don't really want to have, half a liter of cold water, especially because it's really, really cold when I wake up. So I just put it in the pot, heat it up a little bit and just have it warm. It doesn't have to be like boiling hot, but just have a nice warm cup of water. And it's really good for the digestive system in the morning as well. It just helps get things moving, helps get things clear. And you just don't get really cold. You know what I mean? Like I don't like it, especially in the Melbourne winter. If I go for a walk in the morning after having drank half a liter of cold water, I'm gonna be shivering a little bit. So that's something I like to incorporate.
Yes, I like that too. Because when I first came to Australia, I'm originally from Taiwan, and I always drink warm water. But when people first meet me, they're like, "What the heck? Like, why would you drink water?" And I'm just like, "Why would you drink cold water?" Like, I don't get it.
You exceptions a little bit.
Yeah. Because you actually have lived with chronic fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of people actually are living in chronic fatigue lifestyle, but they don't know it. So what would be the 3 things that you would like them to look out for and to know that there is a change that needs to be implemented?
I would say like with this whole chronic fatigue syndrome, it's a lot of it's like along the spectrum. It's not like you have it or you don't. It is one of those sort of umbrella terms as well, which seems to like a lot of people who I met who had chronic fatigue syndrome. We also had different presentations, which for some it was like they had real issues sleeping, which caused them the fatigue. For others, it was they were really hypothyroid, they had like really poor thyroid function. For me, it turns out it was like probably a lot to do with heavy metals and mold toxicity and Lyme disease, as I found out a little bit later. So I think like what I would sort of say is like the things to look out for. I'd say like feeling old before your time. That's a big one for me. It's just like you just don't have that sort of youth about you. Like I was 19 when I became unwell, and I didn't have the energy to stand up straight. And when I would go to the doctors and the specialists, and they'd be like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you here, like on my blood test, you're perfectly healthy." And I'm like, "You can't say that. You can't look at me right now, like having to put my both hands on the table to stand up, and tell me that." So I think if you're not feeling like you should at your age group, like that's a big one. Like that may mean just like poor energy. That may mean like your joints aren't, like supple and fluid as they should be. So just feeling a bit old before your time would be the first thing to look at. I think the second thing would just be frequently getting sick all the time. Whatever comes around, you're going to catch. That's another thing to look into. I mean, I think it's healthy for us to have a cold every so often and express that cold and let it run its course and come out of us. But if we're like getting multiple illnesses per year, I mean, that's something to look out for as well. And with a lot of CFS people, again, it depends on what got them there, but like the immune system is a bit of an issue, and probably because they're also fighting multiple other chronic infections that could lead to the chronic fatigue syndrome. I mean, I know I got diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome years ago, but I don't really resonate too much with the diagnosis because now I feel like I know what's caused it. And I would prefer to say like I've got something to work with, whereas in the early days of when I got diagnosed, there was nothing to do as far as the Western medical system would do. So, and I suppose the next thing would be just like, you're just getting really beat down by things very easily. So something that, like for me, it's exercise. That's something I still admittedly really struggle with. And just like if I cross a little threshold of like how much exercise I can do, I get really like messed up for a good week or so afterwards. And not even to the point where I'd get like muscle soreness like DOMS, but just I would be incredibly fatigued. So if you're someone like that who just gets beat down like from nothing really, or just like from doing work, like doing like the regular day-to-day things, and if that's happening to you and you're just getting really exhausted from it, that may be something to look into. That being said, like if someone tells you can't do anything about this, CFS, like I would challenge that heavily, because I was also told that, and many other people were, and many other people make progress with that. So and that's with a lot of things as well. Just because someone doesn't know, like in a position of authority, doesn't know how to help you, doesn't mean that you can't be helped by yourself or by other practitioners in other fields. So, or even within the same field, really.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. That actually goes back to self-responsibility, really.
Yes, exactly right.
With the age thing, because there are some people that are a bit older and
Mm-hmm.
they might think that, oh, I am at, let's say, late 50s, and they say,
Yeah.
okay, because I am at this age, this is how I'm meant to feel. But I feel
Mm.
like that is not true, because you can feel amazing. What would you say to those people then?
Well, I would agree. Like, so I'm thinking of like a neighbor of mine, and like they had to go in for knee surgery, and they're just told, "Oh, this is just what happens when you get old." But how come the other knee's okay? You know, like did the other knee forget to get old? You know. So look, there are certain things like we have to look after ourselves a bit more as we get older. That's definitely true. But why would our body want us to feel like shit? You know, why would it do that? I mean, sure, if you're doing the wrong things, your body's going to respond. So I think everyone's unique. There's like we have to sort of take each person on like or each situation into account for that. I'd like challenge that because you see people who are like 70s and 80s and they're rocking it. Like they're going to the gym every day and they're feeling great, you know. So why is it that you have to be like, oh no, this is what 50 looks like, you know, this is what my dad looked like at 50, this is what I look like at 50. You know, like you don't have to be stuck into that paradigm. So yeah, I'd say challenge it. Like, and what's the worst that can happen? You try something, you don't feel any better, but at least you tried. You know what I mean? What happens if you do feel better? You know?
Yeah, you know what? Fucking take some responsibilities, people.
Yeah, just give something a try. You know what I mean? Some interventions like going for a nature walk every day, you know, that costs nothing. It just costs a little bit of time. And you know, what's the worst thing that can happen from that apart from, you know, maybe getting bitten by a snake? But don't do it in summertime maybe. But right now there's nothing out. It's wintertime here, so like I think it's pretty safe to go for a walk in nature these days. And you're not going to be seeing anybody, so you can social distance there as well.
Yeah, and while you're at it, maybe you can walk naked and do some earthing and grounding. Just before you said about mold disease, so I really want to touch base on that because I am really anal about cleaning, and I honestly didn't know how bad mold is until I started listening to Dr. Daniel Amen. Do you know him?
Not personally, but I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I love him. He's amazing. But anyways, would you like to tell people how disgusting mold is and how it's really affecting our health?
So mold is one of those big ones that I think in the US estimates are like 1 in 2 houses are affected by mold. So it's quite prevalent over there.
How do people not clean?
Oh, it's not even that. I think it's like the structure of it. It's like a lot of basements and stuff. I think that could be due to it. I think people, like, it's always visible as well. Like it could be, actually this happened with me. When me and my ex-partner were living together, we had mold in the place, and it wasn't until one day. So what was happening was in my cupboard, like at the top, there was a leak in the roof. So the top corner of my cupboard was getting wet, and it would just drip down onto my clothes. And so one morning I just went to grab a jumper and I'm like, this feels wet. Like, I know it's like cold, but it shouldn't be wet. And then I'm like, okay, I didn't think much of it. I just grabbed another jumper on, you know, the other side of the cupboard. When I got home that night to recheck, it was still wet. And then I looked on the floor and my leather shoes were blue. They had like moldy water had dripped on them and had grown onto these shoes. And I didn't see it. Like I didn't have a great sense of smell, admittedly, but I didn't see it because it was hidden from me. And it wasn't as if like, oh, you know, I'm just going to clean the top corner of my cupboard. I couldn't even reach it. It was, you know, it's like that far away. So obviously there are some people who just don't clean enough, and that's going to cause it. But some, like we just had a tile loose in the roof that caused it. And it just had a lot of issues for me. Like I seem to be one of those people who responds quite poorly to it. And there is also a genetic component there. So people with the HLA-DR polymorphism in their genes, they are, I think it's about 25% of people have it, and they can't actually make antibodies to deactivate and get rid of the mold from the body. So what that actually means is the body can't actually, in a sense, like can't see that there's mold in there, so it can't do anything about it. It's like invisible to it. So in people like me, like that, it seems to have like a broad range of effects. Mainly inflammation is at its core, and lowering energy production as well. So, I mean, if we're lowering energy production and increasing inflammation, that's a recipe for disaster. And that's like how a lot of chronic diseases are formed, really. Like high inflammation, can't produce energy. No wonder I was going through chronic fatigue at the time as well. Also, it can trigger autoimmune issues. For me, it presents a lot as joint pain. When my mum she came to give us a hand to like pack up the place, she started getting a headache almost immediately. People sometimes get like really clear liver, like signs of liver damage when they're in moldy places. Like they go yellow, like they get that sort of jaundice look about them. Another funny, well, not funny, it's terrible, but with mold is that it downregulates our detoxification pathways, namely the NRF2 pathway, that would help us get rid of mold. So it's like, it's terrible coming in, and it like deactivates things that would help us get it out. So it's really like a really tough one, and it can be like a real silent killer, I suppose, because people just aren't aware of it. One, and if some people who don't react so strongly, they can just feel a little bit worse every day, a little bit worse, and they don't notice it until they look back, 3 months, like, why do I feel like shit right now? Like, where's my energy gone? And that may be one potential cause, you know what I mean?
That goes with diet too. Can I be honest?
Yeah, like mold in the food supply.
Yes, well, yeah, that's. I mean, just every day, like what you eat. Because sometimes some people would eat certain things and they don't know that it's actually bad for their body.
Yeah.
And then they will slowly feel bad. So with mold, like how can people prevent that?
Yeah. Well, first thing is obviously to get out of the house if you can. But there also there's some mold in foods as well. So some, like lots of coffees do have mold on them. Peanuts, coffee, like it depends on how it's processed, really, the coffee beans, but they can grow quite a lot of mold in it because some of them just sit in these sort of vats for ages and ferment. That's how we they ferment them and they roast them and they bag them and everything. So depending on how they ferment them, it can actually lead to mold production. Peanuts is a really big one as well, and lots of other nuts as well. So especially in like the bulk food section of like health food stores, you might have to be a little bit careful there. And grains is another big one, again for the same reason. Like they might be sitting in place for a while, and dried fruit. And probably one that's not so known is like conventionally grown animal products. So I think in Australia we're pretty lucky. We've got a lot of grass-fed Australian products, but I think it's more so in the States where they've got those CAFO, the concentrated animal feeding lots, operations rather, where they're feeding these animals grains which are filled with mold toxins essentially. And that gets, because it's like a fat soluble toxin, it will get stored in the fat, and then when we eat the animal, or if we eat the milk or the eggs of the animal, we can get some of those mycotoxins there. So it's another like reason, if you can afford it, to look for pasture raised, look for organic, because one, you're supporting your health, two, you're ensuring a better life for these animals, and three, you're supporting more farmers to want to produce that way. So it's going to ultimately lead to a better planet in that regard there. So that's like the first thing is obviously to remove the triggers and the causes. But in terms of like just a healthy diet, I would say like a seasonal whole foods approach is one I tend to go with. So that just means I go to the farmer's market, get my food from there, and I don't have to really even think what's in season because they only sell what's in season there, So summertime it's more berries and fruits and things. In the wintertime it's more of the slow cooked meats and slow cooked vegetables as well, just like that that nice hearty, keeps you warm sort of thing. Springtime it's more greens. That's when sort of, it's funny because we talk about this spring cleaning or a spring detox, and it's like nature's sort of set up that way because a lot of these foods that are more abundant in the springtime, like the brassicas, like the green vegetables, or the green leafy vegetables, they're all really important with like all the nutrients, or not all of them, a lot of the nutrients we need to actually adequately detox. So nature knows best, really. So live in the cycles of nature, I think. And that's probably the best thing I can say for food. One thing I will say, like most people would benefit from avoiding, is seed oils. So funny enough, in Australia, we've got our health star rating, and these seed oils like canola oil, things like that, they get like a 4.5 or a 5-star health rating. And I would say it's probably one of the worst things you can have for your health, really. I don't know why I do know why it's got a 5-star health star rating, but I don't think
you do know why.
Yeah, of course. It's just terrible. They say because it has low saturated fat, but like I think we've been showing time and time again, saturated fat is not the devil that it has been made out to be over all those years. And I think these seed oils, especially if you cook with seed oils, like they are very unstable, like cooking oils. So they're very prone to going rancid. A lot of them are probably most likely rancid by the time you even bring them to your house. They've just been sitting on the shelf for ages. And if you cook with them, they're just very unstable. Whereas saturated fats like coconut oil, butter, ghee, beef fat, lamb fat, things like that, they're more saturated and they are stable fats. So they have a higher smoking point. They don't degrade as easily. They don't oxidize as easily. Obviously within reason. Not everyone can have heaps of saturated fat. Not everyone should have saturated fat at every time as well. We've got to have this nuanced approach. We can't just say good, bad, but I think with seed oils, we can probably just say that's a bad one there. So stay away from that as best as we can. And when we go out, it's for restaurants, it's very hard to avoid it there. So I would say keeping something like a vitamin E supplement handy when you're going out. That's a nice little hack you can employ when you're going out, because you really, unless you specifically ask, and it can be even hard to know if they're actually doing it, but if you ask to cook it in olive oil or butter or something, you don't really know what oils you're getting. And most likely it's going to be the cheaper oils, because one, they're flavorless for the most part, and two, they're very cheap. So it's easy, you know what I mean? The people in restaurants are trying to make money as well, and not all of them are very aware. Some even think they're doing the right thing by their customers, because that's sort of the brainwashing we've been subjected to. That a canola oil is the best food for your health. It's 5-star health rating, and really seriously, yeah, exactly right.
I really want to encourage people to not believe the health rating thing that branding is putting on, because I worked in marketing, and not only because I work in marketing, I just want people to do their own research and think about things and read the ingredients list, please. And with the seed oil thing, you actually shared something today. Was it today or yesterday? Something. But you shared someone's...
yeah, my friend Kai. My friend Kyle from Level Up Health, he had a really good infographic on the types of fats to use and the benefits and detriments of all of them. So that was really, really good post.
Yeah, so I'm going to share that in the description below.
Yeah.
I will be sharing your information in the description below as well. With the mold, I would like to ask, some people, they still eat how when the food get moldy, parts of it is moldy, and then they would eat the parts that are not. Yeah. What would you say to these people?
I would say let's say it's a tomato and it's a little bit that's moldy. I would cut more than you probably think you need to cut off. But it's an interesting one. I'd have to look into this, to be honest, but I'm not 100% sure how much is affected. So I'm not too sure on that one there. But if you are going to, you could, if you're worried you're going to get exposed to mold, having something like charcoal with a meal, or even some things like the brassica vegetables can really help, because they upregulate those NRF2 pathways that help us detoxify compounds like the molds and other things like plastics and whatnot. If it's the whole thing, throw it out. If it's a little bit, maybe. I'm not sure though.
Thank you for being honest though. And I also like the way that you said about the fine quality stuff. What was the point?
The long-term health one, is that what you were talking about?
Is that what you said? But
because I think I talked about my sauna there, and that was a quality purchase, I suppose, and it's lasted me a long time, and I had to pay for it once. I paid a lot up front, but it's lasted me a long time, and that's true of a lot of things. You know what I mean? Even for an exercise, someone who's really into exercise, you can buy a few pieces of equipment that cost you a lot at the time, but if they save you, a trip to the gym every week so you can do a home workout, eventually they're going to pay themselves off. Not just in terms of the money, but think of the time you save driving to and from the gym. We can make these things we can see these things in so many places. And this is where my economics training comes in, because we look at it as a cost, right? Because what could we be doing with that time otherwise? Not everyone likes to sit in the car and drive somewhere. Not everyone likes to spend time doing something. So we have to look into those things as well.
I just want to say to people how the money that you're spending now, I hope that you don't look at it as a big amount, because the best investment that people can invest in is really your health. Because at the end of the day, let's say if you get sick, then you're going to spend a lot more money to freaking fix your body. So exactly, that's something I want to mention.
On that topic, you can't, when you're sick, it's harder to make money as well. Like, you know, you don't have as much hours in the day, like as enough productive hours. There's so many other things going on. So like I would say, if you can, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to spend money there. Like you can do things that don't cost money that are going to benefit your health. You know, the brain capacity in a lot of cases as well. So yeah, the things we can do to improve our health, like, you know, that one-off sauna purchase, or like a nice bed that's going to support you every night, that you're going to, you know, imagine, like, this is a really small thing, but imagine you get like a really good bed that you have a really restful sleep on, and you save half an hour every night, like, because you just get really deep restorative sleep. That half an hour, you know, every day of the week is 3.5 hours extra. You know, compound that over a year, it adds up to a lot of hours, and like you can do a lot with that time. You know what I mean? You can obviously even just use that time to just chill out and read a book or whatever, but there are so many things we can do with that extra time that we create for ourselves, these little hacks. You know what I mean? So, and I can personally say, like, from living in pain for years, like that was on my mind all day, every day, every waking minute. It was like, the pain's there, the pain's there, the pain's there. And that, like how productive could I be with that there? Like not really much, because it just always, like, you know, doing in my economics degree, doing a maths equation and getting to the end of it. And then it's like, oh, hey, I'm still here, I'm still sore, you know, like you're gonna have to deal with me later. And it was just like really just robbing me of energy, because my brain was always doing two things at once. Like it was here and it was on the paper, and it was in a conversation, it was always here as well. And oh, you better sit down soon because your knee's going to start getting sore. So I think a lot of people have sort of do that to some degree, and know, like, even just like being sick frequently with a cold, like it's gonna cost you money eventually.
I really want people to start looking after themselves before they get any major issues, and I'm just so happy that you are healthier now, honestly.
Yeah.
Who do you live with?
So I live with my mum, my brother at the moment.
So do they all have the same values about health?
No, definitely
okay. Well, share with me, please, because I want to ask. Not everyone live with the people who have the same health values. So what can people eat more or less of, because that is something that we can control?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said before, the seed oils are definitely something to steer like clear of. Actually, we'll start there. So on the fat side of things, the fats we eat, I think, can be even more important than the sugars we eat. Like if I had a choice between eating, like, you know, a boatload of sugar or like something with canola oil, I'd actually choose the sugar, because we can easily burn the sugar. You know, we go for a walk afterwards and we can metabolize that sugar quite rapidly, but the canola oil and the unhealthy fats, they form part of your cell membrane. Like they form the actual outer layer of your cells. Your cells make up your body. They take a lot longer to get out of the body. So start with healthy fats. So that, like I would say before, like these are mostly the saturated and the monounsaturated fats. So that's like our coconut oil, our butters and ghees, if you can tolerate dairy, of course, from grass-fed sources ideally. You know, pasture-raised beef fat, pasture-raised lamb fat, things like tallow as well. Obviously, the taste for tallow isn't for everybody. Then you've got things like olive oil, avocado oil, macadamia oil. I would say they're, like, personally, I use them more for salad dressings and things, and occasionally cook with them, but I do prefer to cook with those saturated fats. They are a lot more stable. That's the first thing. Like, those are the healthy fats I think we should have more of, and less of the unhealthy, like seed oils and things like that. In terms of like fruits and veggies, I say, like, go seasonal, because again, our body has that daily rhythm of, you know, night and day, and it's got that seasonal, like that yearly rhythm of, you know, it's springtime, it's summertime, it's autumn, it's winter, and we have to recognize that the food we eat as well tells our body what season it is as well. So we need to sort of have that information from another aspect. I mean, if we think about it, like, you know, berries are a very cooling food, and if we're having berries in the middle of winter, you know, if we're having a acai, you know, smoothie bowl in the middle of winter, we're not probably going to be doing the best, because it's cold on top of cold. We need those warming, nourishing foods then. And then we got simple things like, we look at like fish, for instance. You know, people think fish is healthy, and certainly is, but like the higher food chain fish, like our tunas and our swordfish and things like that, they can have a lot of mercury in them. And so things like, I think the acronym is SMASH. So it's like sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon and herring. They're like quite low on the food chain in fish, and they are quite low in mercury. So those are like little simple swaps we can make. In terms of like having grains and things, I don't think they're like as healthy as has been touted for our life, really, but I think there is definitely a place for them. And I'd say if you're going to be having grains, I think it's a really good idea to soak and or ferment them before having them. So just soaking them overnight, a lot of them, even that goes for nuts and seeds as well. And the reason for that is these grains and nuts and seeds, they have these in like enzymes in them that prevent us from absorbing a lot of the nutrients from them. So these like phytic acid and things like that. So simply soaking them overnight can deactivate a lot of that phytic acid, makes it easy for us to uptake the nutrients. We don't want to be sort of fighting with our food to get what we need from them, essentially. In terms of animals, I'd say, again, like on that sort of saturated fat myth, it's been overblown essentially. And I think having some well-sourced animal foods in your diet can do a lot of people a lot of good. Of course, there's going to be exceptions to the rule, like with everything, really. I mean, if every person that one food is the best for them, you can find someone who it's the worst for them. They can go with coffee. Some people, it's the best food for them. It's really high in polyphenols, antioxidants. Others just get incredibly jittery from it and stressed out, and like it's not going to be any good for them. And so I think that sort of brings us back to like that first question where we got to like be self-aware. And just because something's good for someone else doesn't mean it's going to be the best for you, but it might be. So like try it out. If it doesn't work, like you don't have to subscribe to the dogma of, oh no, I have to eat this way. This is the best way. It's like, no, you got to find out what's the best for you. And I would say most of that's going to be like a whole foods seasonal approach. And you just got to tailor it to your specific needs. You know what I mean? Like, and at different parts of your life, that may also change as well. But prepare your food properly, eat seasonally, self-awareness. There we go. There's your diet.
I think you did an amazing job. That was very detailed. Especially with the oil and needing to soak your grain. How about rice?
Yeah, that's another one. Like it's a grain as well, so we can benefit from soaking it. And funny enough, like we often think brown rice is a much healthier alternative to white rice, but brown rice has a lot more of that phytic acid in it. So, and it can actually be a lot harder to digest. I think when people are sick in, like, I think it's more of the traditional Chinese medicine, again, they're given white rice because it's much easier for the body to digest and assimilate. And I find that personally as well. I usually stick to white basmati rice. I cook it with a bit of fenugreek seeds because the fenugreek helps with the glycemic, like the blood sugar control from them. So, and it's, I think when we can get herbs into our diet, like these herbs are, like fenugreek and rosemary and, bay leaf and things like that, they're still foods, but they pack a punch, like turmeric as well, turmeric and ginger, they pack a real punch. And if we can make them taste good, it's like getting, food as medicine essentially. And I think that's a really good one to do. Like having a little bit of these medicinal compounds can really do us some benefit.
You cook for your family?
No, I cook for myself. I usually we sort of do our own thing around here, and I eat quite early because I go to bed quite early as well. So I usually finish dinner by about like 5:45, let's say, and I'm in bed by about 8:30 also at this. Yeah, it's okay. You're not fine.
Thank you so much for your time. But I am not finished with you yet. I want to ask about stress.
Yeah.
Because given the current time, a lot of people are feeling anxious and stressed, obviously. So what would you suggest people to do or eat? Yeah,
look, that's such a big one. I mean, I will admit as well, like stress is probably my biggest issue holding me back with my health, I would say, just because I am sort of that type A personality. I'd say just want to go get it done. And I think as well, like from being sick all those years, I just wanted to make up for lost time, so to speak. So like I will admit I'm not perfect with this, but because of that, I've looked at many different avenues to mitigate this stress. So the very first thing we can do is identify what is actually causing stress in our lives. Okay, so we can know that, this is an old one from me. I used to leave for work at the very last minute, like that I could possibly leave, and that meant I was always like, shit, am I going to make it in time? Like if that car doesn't make it through the light, I'm not going to make it through, and then I'm going to be late. I'd be stressed out for a whole 45-minute drive. But you know what I decided? I'm like, you know what? I see this now. This is such a stupid form of stress for me. So I just left half an hour earlier, and I didn't feel stressed at all the whole way there. If someone drove in front of me, oh well, no problems. If someone didn't go through the light, oh well, no problems. I got plenty of time. So that's like something we can all look for. Like obviously no one's going to have that, and not everyone's driving too much these days. But I look for the source. Like again, self-awareness. What is causing me stress? When do I go into that stress response, and what does it look like for me? Once we identify that, there are some things we can just say, I don't need that in my life. Get rid of it. There are some things we can't do that, so we can mitigate as best we can. But then there are ones that we can't do anything about that are going to be staying there. So I would think something like, a meditation practice is a really good thing for a lot of people. Not for everyone, of course. And meditation doesn't have to look the same way for everybody. It's not like we have to sit in lotus position and, not think a thought, because guess what? You're going to think thoughts. I think everyone that says, "Oh, meditation's not for me, I can't shut off my mind." Yeah, like these monks living on the mountaintops, like they spent their lifetime trying to like quieten their mind, and you expect, do a 15-minute session, it's going to happen.
Do you meditate?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, good job. Continue.
Yeah. So like meditation might be something. Others, it might be just like a nice movement practice that can be meditative. Others might be a walk in nature. So it doesn't have to look the same for everybody, but just having that sort of mindful time, that present time where you're not distracting yourself with something else. You know what I mean? If you see your mind like wavering or wandering somewhere else, just recognize that. Oh, okay, I'm going over there now. How about I just come back to my body? And you can be gentle about it. You can just keep coming back. Oh no, that's okay. Like, I see you're thinking about that, but that's not for now. It's for later. It's not happening right now. Let's come back to the present time and just, oh, what can I feel on my feet? Or, like even yoga nidra, I really like that practice, which is, people can find like YouTube videos of it. It's like the sleepy yoga, essentially. That was really good when I was just starting out with yoga again after like, being ill for so long. It's like, oh, I can lie down and, get some nice benefits from this. Like, fantastic. This is great.
You illustrated so beautifully.
Yeah.
Because I think people need to really start connecting with their body. And actually, what you were saying about the diet before. Were you finished? I'm sorry. Did I cut you off?
I was going to say like one more thing, probably just, or two more things. Let's say three.
Okay,
good support, like support circle, like people you can talk to. That might be a practitioner. That may be some good friends. You know what I mean? And then like some people like having a creative outlet. So for me, I like playing guitar. Other people might like to paint or draw or whatever. And I think the final one is like using specific herbs. So we've got adaptogenic herbs, which help modulate that stress response. So they're really wonderful things. I think they're sort of a necessity for the 21st century where there's so many things bombarding our senses all the time. So the idea behind them is like if you're too hyper, like too high up, they bring you down. Not bring you down, they sort of bring you to more neutral stands. And if you're too low, they bring you up. So they balance everything is the idea. We've got nervine tonics as well. So, things like ashwagandha, Shasandra, reishi, those are all like some really fantastic adaptogenic herbs that can really help in these times.
With the herb thing, thank you. With the herb thing, you are able to help people with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for those who are listening and watching, if you're interested, the details will be in the description. Thank you so much for sharing that. And sorry for cutting you off.
No, fine.
I was gonna say, tuning with your body with the diet thing. You know how you say some people might say, oh, that is the diet that I need to eat to, I don't know, whatever they want to do. But you need to tune in with your body. If you're not feeling well, then don't continue and do it. That is just stupid.
That being said, though, some diets do require a little bit of an adjustment period. So like, give it the time. It might be 4 weeks, for something. But if you're doing something for 2 years and it's not working, it's not helping you at all and you're probably getting worse, look at that and like, why am I so identified with this diet? Like, why has this diet become who I am? You know what I mean? Like, I think we see that with a lot of people, especially on like social media, where they're, Stefan the vegan or David the keto David or whatever. Like when we pigeonhole ourselves.
Real accounts?
Oh, I'm just making them up. Yeah, but I'm just like saying like if we get stuck in that, like let's say it is Stefan the vegan and the vegan diet no longer working for him. He's so identified with that crowd now that he can't break free of it. Or keto Dave, finds out that the keto diet is no longer working for him. Like he's so stuck in that. But then so that's why I like to sort of just it's Stefan Filippo Health. That's my social. That's my sort of my branding, because I'm all about health and whatever that looks like. And that can change over time. And I want to try out new things, and I don't want to sort of get too stuck in one way of doing things, because that won't always work for me and it won't always work for everyone else as well.
You brought up two amazing points. The first one is, yes, give it a time. Some people, they might try like, let's say a week, and then they're like, that doesn't work, and then give up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's too short. And then the second one is the labeling thing. That is amazing, because some people, they have been doing certain things for so long, and then because they identify themselves as that, and then it's so hard for them to, I guess, unlearn and take off that label. So if you're someone like that that's listening, I would honestly encourage you to take off that label.
So even just look at it like, does it still serve me? And just frequently check in with yourself,
Yes. Oh, and also I'm going to remind you to stress less.
Thank you. I had my day off today, so I'm getting there.
I also think that a lot of people, I don't know, they are really heavily rely on pharmaceutical pills. What would you say to those people? Because I feel like it's never too late to turn your life around.
I'd say we have to sort of revisit our sort of beliefs around these things. And there are certainly instances where having pharmaceuticals is helpful. I don't think many people would dispute that. There is definitely a use for them in certain situations. But I think it comes back to that analogy of, if you've got a hammer, you see nails everywhere. If you've got pharmaceutical drugs, you see people who need pharmaceutical drugs. And I think a lot of a big issue with these things is you're not really addressing the root cause all the time. The root cause is not always deficient in pharmaceuticals. We got to address maybe my blood pressure is high because I'm just incredibly stressed and my lifestyle no longer serves me. But if we just take pills to lower that blood pressure, that can help in the short term. But that problem is still there. If it doesn't manifest as high blood pressure, it's going to manifest somewhere else. These symptoms we get, if we're just suppressing them, we're killing the messenger essentially. If someone came to your door and said, this has happened, here's the news, something's happened, the whole country's in lockdown, you wouldn't shoot that guy. He's just the messenger. The message is what you don't like. And for the message for me, it was pain for all those years. And I was pretty much, in a sense, telling my body that, don't tell me what's wrong, don't give me feedback, but that's not helpful really. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of, I think, people who rely on pharmaceutical medications can get down to. That they can just suppress every symptom. I've got the cold and flu. I don't want to miss work, so I'm going to suppress it. There are times for that, of course, but I don't think it's all the time. Where we're taught to to soldier on and to have this, and if you got pain, don't worry, just take a Panadol and you'll be fine. And I don't think that's the best solution, because what's causing the pain is still there. It's like if I were driving my car and the check engine light comes on and the red one comes on, and I just put a little Band-Aid over that, the engine's still fucked. I just don't know it's still fucked. Same with having a Panadol. If you've got chronic upper back tension and you're getting headaches and you take a Panadol, the upper back's going to be chronically tense still. And as soon as you stop taking the Panadol, you're going to have to deal with that. So may as well deal with it now. But that being said, you can use these things, if you're working with a good physician in the interim, to help you get rid of that root cause. If you need a bit of symptomatic relief to sleep, go for it, but no one's going to tell you not to. But I don't think they should always be the first port of call for everything. What about a healthy lifestyle? What about living on purpose? What about, stress management techniques? What about, I don't know if it's a healthy diet, exercising, all these things we can do. Why aren't they spoken about first? And we see this in the news right now with what's going around with the coronavirus, right? It's fear, it's, social distance, but how often are they talking about supporting the immune system? Not very often, and that's we know now that people who are getting sick are metabolically unwell. What are we telling people about how to improve their metabolic health? Not very much. It's this sort of paradigm that's come into the mainstream media as well, and I think it's doing people a big disservice, because people all around here now, I just say, they feel hopeless. I hope I don't come into contact with someone with it. They almost think they're going to die if someone coughs near them these days. And obviously, be prepared for things, but realize your own power. We have an immune system. We have so much going well for us. If we if we died at the first sign of any infection that came our way, the human species would not be here. I'm here to tell you that. So there are so many things we have overcome in the past. A lot of people can overcome this now. And I think the more healthy you are, the more resilient you are to everything, not this going around at the moment.
A great point that you said. And it also honestly just go back to the self-awareness and the self-responsibility thing. And I like the way that you said it about it didn't treat the root, the root cause. And to be honest, I don't blame people, because we have been trained for decades that we need to have instant gratification. If I feel pain now, I need to feel better in the
Yeah.
next hour or whatever.
Mm.
But I just want to encourage people to slow down, to just tune in with your body. And it's like the band-aid, you know, if you put on a band-aid and you don't put any actually amazing medicine on it, then how the heck is it gonna truly heal?
Yeah.
But yeah, well, you know how before you said you're not amazing at handling stress?
Yeah.
So how do you handle stress?
That's a good one. So I'll talk about from a few different angles I do. So on the physical side of things, I have a Buteyko breathing practice, which I do, and that helps me quite a lot. I do my infrared sauna, which helps me get into that parasympathetic space. I have a pretty strict rule with like working at night. So I unless it's absolutely necessary, I do not work after dinner. And I usually, like now that it's winter, I try and stop a bit earlier because I think winter's more of that time to rest and relax and recuperate. So I usually stop work a little bit earlier, and that means I have to be pretty pedantic with my time and use it pretty effectively. Another one is for me is to do my best not to load up in commitments too much, and that's something I tend to do. Like, I'm not going to lie, I do put a bit on my plate at times, and sometimes it's not always the best use of my time either. Just sort of more so in the past of just sort of saying yes to everything and saying no to myself, I suppose. On the herbal front, I do usually take some adaptogenic herbs. Like, I have them in rotation. So ashwagandha is probably a favorite of mine. It just seems to work really well for me. Other ones like reishi, I find them like that to be quite useful. Or like Shisandra is really good for me as well. Those are probably the main like adaptogenic herbs I take. In terms of like other supplements, I found taurine, the amino acid, and glycine to be quite effective as well. And magnesium is obviously a big one for a lot of people too. In terms of like the other end, I've actually just started working with a new chiropractor. This is Dr. Ari Diskin in Melbourne, Fitzroy. And geez, I can't speak more highly of him, really. So if anyone's in Melbourne and wants a really good chiropractor, I would really sing his praises. It's not like one of those cracking chiropractors. It's called network chiropractic. It's very light touch. And you would think that, from this sort of Western mindset that someone's just touching you really lightly, nothing's going to happen. But I've been working with him for 6-7 weeks. I've been having all these emotional releases, and I feel it in my body. I feel like I've gained a much deeper perception of my body, and I just feel things coming up, and they come out in weird ways. Sometimes it's just shaking. Like the first couple of weeks, I just have those those tremors that run through the body and come out. And other times, it's just been like I just feel the need to really like let out that that primal sort of that sort of that sound. And today I had a bit of a cry, actually. Like, some stuff about my dad came up that he passed away a few years ago, and I realized I was still holding on to a lot about that, and it just something came, and it came out, and it was afterwards I felt really good. And it's we shouldn't really put these emotions as bad. They need to be felt. If they're not being felt, they're just going to be stored, and they're going to be contributing to ailments later on. So this chiropractor man, Ari, he's like, he walks the talk as well. Like, he's really very vital man. So there's my little man crush Monday, I suppose.
Is that all you do?
And then I've got the little bits and pieces as well, having a good friend circle that I can chat to when things aren't, or even when things are good, just to chat. Just sometimes you don't even know what's going on until you just have a conversation with someone, and you say something, you're like, that's actually how I feel. Like, I didn't, until I got the opportunity to put it into words, I never know. So this can be like when you're talking to people, sometimes you just need to ask them the right question, and they'll be like, like you with these questions, like the first question about looking back, it gives me a nice chance to reflect. And same thing with when you're talking with friends. If someone's not quite right and you just ask them the right question, or even just ask them a simple question like, how are you feeling, or why do you think you're feeling this way? They might give you the answer. They'll be shocked. And that's something we learn in naturopathic school as well. Like, clients often know what needs to be done for them. They just need to be asked the questions so they can bring it out themselves. And those are where like the more profound things happen, I think, where people are like, I've known this all along. Like, it came out of my mouth, I can do it. I just need to hear it one more time, or the seed needs to be planted. And
what you just said was very beautiful. First of all, I'm very sorry about your loss.
All right.
And I hope that you are really looking for ways to let your body to grieve and not suppressing it. And with the chiropractor thing, so I actually had a conversation with a neuro-oncologist the other day. So she told me this story, how she was talking to one of her patients, and then the patient went to see a chiropractor, and then the chiropractor was like, oh yeah, I can definitely fix your heart attack or whatever it is. I'm just like, what the freak? Like, are you serious? From a chiropractor? Like, you need to have a think. Whoever is practicing that, the moral is definitely very low.
Like sometimes practitioners can prey on people. Like there are good practitioners in every sort of field, really. And I think if you're like honest about what you can and can't do, it's obviously quite good. And some people just, I don't know if we should, like, even in naturopathy, we don't really say we treat diseases at all. We help the person, you know, and if they happen to overcome the disease in the meantime, great. But let's say you got diagnosed with diabetes, someone else got diagnosed with diabetes, someone else got diagnosed with diabetes. We need to find out what got you there. You know, for someone, it might be that they have iron overload and that contributes to like a, you know, poor pancreas function. For someone, it might be they're just eating way too much. For the other person, it might be that they are incredibly stressed. So we can't treat them all the same way because they all got there for different reasons. So the disease is helpful in helping us what to do, but we don't treat the disease, so to speak. We help the person get over what they need to get over themselves.
What you said was beautiful. Before I ask you my last question, is there anything that you feel like I didn't ask or you would like to share?
I would say, like, just as a sort of final note, just remember, like, for the people listening, that like you are pretty powerful with a lot of what you do. You know, we have power with a lot of things. So I just really want to, I mean, that's part of sort of my mission right now. It's like educate, empower, involve. So, you know, educate people so that they're empowered to evolve into the best version of themselves. And, you know, some people, education is what empowers them. Other people, it's like the realization that they are powerful that empowers them. So it's, I just think, realize that we do have power. We have a lot that we can do, and the stuff we can't do, well, you know, you can't do much about it. So we just focus on the stuff we can do and do really good at that.
Yes, I love it. Thank you for doing what you do. So my last question for you is, how do you think we can be there for each other in general?
I would say, like, now is probably an interesting time to ask that question because there's a lot of division right now, right? You know,
division from what?
Well, with the coronavirus especially, I think there's a lot of people like shaming and blaming others. You know, people saying, oh, you know, you're not social distancing properly, or, you know, how could you say that? You know, and there's a lot of tension. So like, it's sort of like, it's understandable that this is coming up now. Like, people are stressed out and they're not thinking logically, I suppose. So I would say, like, as a first step, be kind to people as best you can. You don't know what caused them to act the way they are acting right now in this point in time. You know, that's not to say it justifies it, but just be compassionate, be kind as best you can. I think as well, when we've got information and we want someone to know, like, let's say I've got this information I know can really help my friend, you can't ram it down their throat. You know, you have to present them and let them do what they want to do with it. Sometimes you need to ram it down their throat, but for the most part, it doesn't work. You know, like, I think in this field, we see that we all want to help our families and, like, or our close friends. They don't always want to listen to us, but sometimes you never know the benefit of just planting a seed and, like, watering it every day. You know, like saying, oh, how about this? Or my friend did this and it was really helpful. Or, you know, I've read this study about this. But you got to present it in a way and then just, like, give the information to the person and let them do what they want to do with it. Some don't want to do anything, that's fine. Some do want to do something, that's fine as well. I think on that sort of kindness and compassion thing, we can often get into the thought that if someone has an opposing view, that they're wrong. And I would challenge that, because we're not always right. I think the people who think they're always right, that's people to run away from. Usually someone says, I know everything, I'm the best at this and I've never been wrong. They have probably been wrong more times than they know. That's the problem. So always be willing to at least entertain the idea that the other person's correct. If you entertain it and you still think it's bullshit, well, maybe it is then, you know, then you can move on. But don't just, like, shut someone down or shut down yourself to another idea because it's not 100% the same as what you believe right now, you know. And I suppose the last one would just be, you be a role model to people, you know, like, show people, like, hey, this is working for me, and show them the results. You know, like, be a really fantastic person, and people can see it in you. Like, if you're living, you know, the lifestyle and you know, living on purpose and helping people, and people see it. Like, they see it in your smile, they see it in, you know, the presence you have, and they want to know more about it. Like you'll attract the people who want to hear your message if you're putting the message out there and just being the role model, I think. So yeah, there we go.
I also want to encourage people to have more acceptance. I know it's really hard to accept those people who don't have the same value or thinking, but we're all different. And that is the thing that I wanted to say. Like when you say naturopath, you don't say you cure disease, or someone might have diabetes. What did you say? But anyways, like two people, they might not have the same background story or whatever. That is because we're all different. Like there are no two people that have the same thing. But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
What did you enjoy most about the interview? Are you suffering from any pain, any illness, or any disease? How are you feeling today? No, really, how are you feeling? Share them with me. I really love how magical his experience has been with his chiropractor. You really don't know how things will turn out until you give it a try. He has touched on so many things in the interview that I would like you to think about. Why are you feeling pain in certain area? How does certain food make you feel? How is your body reacting to certain things? When was the last time that you let out all your emotions? Actually, when was the last time you ever asked yourself these questions? Like I said, you wouldn't know until you give it a try. So, if today you choose to give naturopathy a try, well, Stefan's details are in the description below. Now don't forget to subscribe, click the thumbs up button if you have loved it, and share it with someone because you never know what they're going through. Now you can click anywhere on the screen to listen to other people's stories. And remember, you're amazing and you are not alone. I will see you in the next video.